Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back again with another episode today. I'm absolutely thrilled to have with me Laura Williams. Laura, first of all, welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Tom.
Or I should probably say welcome back to the pod. You are a part of the Magnificent Seven.
Yes, I am.
Tell us who the Magnificent Seven is.
It's a group of local artists in the Kerrville Hunt area, and we connected mainly through Elaine Capers, who is a great organizer through ACC in Kerrville. And she asked if we wanted to pull a show together. And she, I think, reached out to a couple of people she knew. And then we each kind of invited somebody else. Anyway, we ended up with seven, and we started calling ourselves the Magnificent Seven based on the 1960s movie. And
You had the show, I believe, in September and October of 2023.
yes,
And there is plans for a 2024 show, if I'm not
yes,
correct.
the Magnificent Seven is going to ride again.
But we can't wait. But we're here to actually talk about something else, which is, I'm going to call it the Hunt Art Fair, because that's how I was introduced to it.
Fair
Uh,
enough.
I know there's been a rebranding, and we'll get to that in a minute, but tell me about the Hunt Art Fair. How did you get involved with it?
I was one of the original members. Nancy Huffman, who's a longtime friend of mine, reached out. She was already living here. We owned some property here, so we were in and out of town and living in Austin at the time. And so we decided to do this market, which none of us had really done before. And we talked with the Hunt Preservation Society and arranged to do it in the pavilion originally on July 4th, 3 years ago.
And that was my introduction to the local art scene, my wife and I, because it was on July 4th. It was in Hunt, and it was just, as you said, a local Hunt artist. And so we came out to the pavilion, and literally the first woman we met was Deanna Eichmann
Of course.
as we came into the pavilion. And tell us how the art fair has grown from there and what the new rebranding name.
Okay. That first year was very much a learning curve for all of us. First market, how do we advertise? I think we were in a great spot because we had a lot of locals drive by. The next year, we relocated to Bridget's Basket, which is such a beautiful venue. And Bridget has such a great campus, I'm going to call it, because it encompasses a lot of different things. And so we tried a different approach for marketing and advertising. We collected some money from each of the artists and created posters and tried to advertise with different agencies around town, Kerrville mainly. And I think we weren't so pleased with how many people came, but I think that was, in analyzing it after the show, we all agreed that we needed to step up our advertising campaign, that since we weren't on a corner, people may or may not know we were at Bridget's. So we've done a lot harder work this year, I think, at trying to make flyers, signs, posters, be on air,
Podcast.
print, podcast. Yes, of course. One of our most important avenues.
And how did you rebrand the show?
So this year we've included more artists who are not just Hunt based. So that was part of it. We had talked to some people, some different artists, and even we've talked with some who live as far away as El Dorado, certainly some in Kerrville. And we just decided Hunt was maybe a little too specific. So why not just call it Hill Country Artist? And then it just encompasses a larger geographical area.
There's a podcast by that name.
Yes, there is. Hill Country Artists. And that might have been part of our guiding subconscious thought there.
Can I get you to say a few words about Bridget Basket? First of all, you talked about the beauty of the venue. Can you say a few words about kind of physically how it's set up and really, in my mind, how that, at least last year, lended itself to multiple artists for a show?
Sure. She's located right off of Highway 39, right before you get into Hunt. And when you pull in, it's a rocked entry, and you're pulling into a vineyard, which I love. It feels like you're, I don't know, in Napa Valley maybe, but not so congested with people and traffic. So you drive through this vineyard. She has a restaurant. She has a lovely courtyard patio area where we had live music on the patio. Guests can sit and have lunch or dinner and just sit and have a drink. And then there's also a market in a separate building that's a great coffee shop. And she's got things for sale that are local to the Hunt community and the Hill Country. She even has, like, you can buy dinner, a frozen casserole and take home. She's got quite an operation going there.
So let me turn to you and some of the things that you might be preparing for this year's Hill Country Artist Art Show. What do you have in mind for us?
I'm going to do some smaller works. I've got some rather large paintings, which I'm going to put out a couple of those, but I'm really going to, I think, concentrate on smaller works this year. I've been doing at Thanksgiving, Bridget had another market, a holiday market, which I was in, and I had done some smaller cactus pieces. And I just kind of trying some different things, and those were very successful. This summer, I've got some wildflowers. In fact, I brought one.
Could you show us?
I sure could. They're on these little cradled boards, and I'm just doing Hill Country wildflowers. This happens to be an Indian blanket that I pass on my morning walk every morning. Quite intriguing to me. But it can sit just without hanging, or you could hang it on the wall. But I think they're kind of nice. They can be grouped together. So I've got those planned. And then I have a few pieces that I painted in the past, Plein-Air of the Shriner Mansion in Kerrville that are framed. And then I have some prints that are available that I use. Normally when I go out and Plein-Air paint, I do a sketch with markers. And so some of those sketches, honestly, I've liked better than the paintings. And so I've got some prints made of those sketches that'll be for sale as well.
You brought something else to show us. What do you have?
Yeah. A couple of weekends ago, Kerrville Parks and Recreation had Community Day at Kerrville Shriner Park. And Sarah Stewart invited Plein-Air painters to come. So a few of us from Hunt went and painted in the pollinator garden. So this is my pollinator piece from that event. And this will be in the show as well. So
What is Plein-Air paint?
it's French, en plein air. And it means in the open air. The Impressionists were the first ones who actually practiced this type of painting. And that was because paint was being offered in tubes for the first time. So they were able to transport paint out into the field, and thus Plein-Air was born. And then, of course, the Impressionists are most well known for their light-filled paintings. They approached painting very differently than had historically been done at that time. So nowadays, Plein-Air painting, we still go out in the field. We still haul all our gear into paint and tubes and lots of gear, and put on bug spray and whatever else, hats and sunscreen. And it's really the best way to understand your subject matter if you're a landscape painter.
Could you tell us about some of the other styles or different types of art we will see in this year's Hill Country Art Fair, in addition to what you're going to bring?
Sure. So you mentioned Deanna Eichsman. Deanna is an acrylic painter mostly, although she does paint in oils, but her work's mostly in acrylic, and she does a lot of fabulous animals, I think. So she'll have a booth or a tent. She has a tent set up. Another artist, Janelle Lindley, will be there. She does what she calls paper painting, which she tears papers and creates color on them. And then it's a mixed media type piece, and they're very bright and colorful. Janelle will also have a tent. Juan Leal will be there. He's a watercolorist, does some amazing work of turtles and some other things. He just does amazing watercolor. Janet Reinwald will be there, another wonderful landscape watercolorist. Joni Jones will be there with ceramic arts, and she's been doing some wonderful stuff. She has her own pottery studio, and she makes some really interesting pieces, I think. I know I'm leaving people out. Elaine Capers will be there. She does oil landscapes, mostly of West Texas. Of course, my friend Nancy Huffman, oil paintings mostly, although she's got some watercolor flowers and birds. And I know I'm leaving somebody out. 12 artists.
One of the things I enjoy about the former Fun Art Fair, now Hill Country Art Fair, Hill Country Artists Art Fair, is there's really not too many opportunities for me as a consumer of art, or a customer or an appreciator, to be around a group of you all. And when the first time I went to the Hunt Art Fair and subsequent shows since then, including the Magnificent Seven, have really demonstrated to me the vibrancy of the local art scene. And so I was wondering if you could say just a few words about that and the diversity of art here and how you guys all support each other and really what's the art scene like for you?
I feel like I've died and gone to heaven as far as an artist. It's a super supportive network of people. It extends way beyond the people that I've listed. In fact, we just formed another plein air painting group resulting from the pollinator garden. Artists that I had not met yet. And so we formed another outdoor painting group. And we got a Facebook section so we can schedule events and go and meet there. But it's just everywhere, any type of art venue here, be it a market, Kerrville Arts and Cultural Center, the Museum of Western Art, which is the creme de la creme. You meet artists and they're so willing to talk about their work, their struggles, perhaps. There's a lot of camaraderie, a lot of exchanging of numbers, and let's meet up and let's get together and talk about art. Oh, another one I've forgotten to mention is the Atelier, Hill Country Atelier here with Holly. She's been awesome. She supports us and has offered lots of classes, and I do a portrait club with Deanna and Holly and some other people from the Atelier once a month. And anyway, it's just very supportive. And of course, lots of opportunities to paint beautiful things around here.
So I mentioned before we were starting about some friends of mine from up north who had come down. And one of the places I took them was the Museum of Western Art. It happened to be when the most recent exhibit was opening. And there were several artists actually in the museum painting or sculpting and otherwise creating art. And so my friends got in these long conversations with them. And when we were leaving, one of them said, I couldn't believe they would talk to me. And I said, listen, the one thing you need to know about artists is they will talk about their art all day, every day. And if they have somebody new to talk to, they won't stop.
You're going to get sucked in. That's right.
And they just loved it. And the artists loved it because they did exactly what you've described. They were talking about their passion to someone new and someone who may not have been exposed to cowboy art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So let me ask about the weather in this spring, the rain we've had, the variety of colors that I see in the landscape. I think it was Dawn said, well, you're ruined. You're looking at a landscape like an artist now. You'll never go back. But just looking out the window here, I can see maybe 5 or 6 different shades of green. Do you experience that when you go out and either sketch or plein air?
Oh, yeah. Yes. There's an explosion of color, and the wildflowers this year were off the charts, I felt like. And also different. This is our second year to be living here permanently. And the purple verbena this year I didn't remember those from last year, but they were magnificent this year. So I think that's interesting that it's not a typical seasonal, like you're going to see these flowers, but there's just different kinds of color and explosion. And talk about the greens. Oh yeah, that's in the artistic landscape world. We joke about how many shades of green are there. And one of the things about plein air painting is that you're trying to capture that local color. So you're trying to mix all those shades of greens. And sometimes I may spend a couple of hours on my sketch. And so I'll just mix up the colors I'm seeing and just do brush strokes of color on my sketch and then create from that in the studio.
So I am a writer. And when I write fiction, I see the story in my head and literally just sort of comes out through the keyboard. As an artist, do you see the painting in your head or do you see what's in front of you, whether it's a sketch, a plein air, and you're trying to recreate that or put your own spin on it?
It's not quite as clear in my head like that. There's something that draws me in about the landscape or the subject matter that I'm painting. And I think maybe with me, it's a little bit more evolutionary. Like I'll start, which For a while, I had given up sketching while plein air painting. I just would dive right in and draw on the canvas and paint. But I realized that I wasn't understanding my subject matter as well when I didn't draw it in my sketchbook first. So I have since reverted back to my drawing, which I love doing, but it just, I guess it's like studying for a test. If you have to write it out, you understand the subject matter better. So if I draw first and then I start to paint, the painting part to me, it's like it starts to lead itself. It's not so much about me. Or I said that the wrong way. It's not so much about, I was going to say my control, but that's not true either.
No, yeah, I completely get where you're
I'm
going.
trying to find the words to describe the art world. It's best said like this. A lot of times artists will say the painting painted itself.
Right.
So that's more what happens. And then you get to this place, which I'm sure you do in writing, where you're satisfied that it's finished. And you might need to sleep on it a week or two or a year or 3. And if it will finally resolve itself, things will tug at you and you'll fix this or do a little of that. And yeah.
As we move towards the end of our time for this podcast, if our listeners wanted to find out more information on the Hill Country Artist Art Fair, could you tell us when it is, where it is, and where can they go find out more information?
Sure. The dates are June 28th and 29th, which are Friday and Saturday. It's at Bridget's Basket, which is on Highway 39, right before the Hunt Bridge, the Hunt Crossing. We have a Facebook page called Hill Country Artists. What it's called, because we rebranded. Anyway, search Hill Country Artist. And I want to say maybe there's another group, but they're not in Texas. And then we've got posters, flyers up in the post office and other places. I think the newspaper might be printing an article about us, or just reach out to any of the artists. You can find me at laurawilliamsgallery.com. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram under that same name, Laura Williams Gallery, and Nancy Huffman Studios, and Elaine Capers, Deanna Eichsman.
Thanks so much for coming down to visit with us, and I look forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for supporting us. You've been such a great promoter. Thank you.
Great.